So this is a bridging exercise about making a personal response to a painting. Fine Art A-Level is all about your personal response to the subjects that you choose to investigate as well as to other artworks. And we're going to jump straight in with this particular painting without saying anything about it. So you'll need some paper, a pencil, a used tea bag, and 2 or 3 different coloured paints, whatever you've got around the house. Look closely at the image for 30 seconds. You could freeze frame the screen to do that. Then cover up the screen or hide the image, and without looking at it, draw for 30 seconds anything that you can remember about the painting or something that appealed to you about the painting. And it doesn't matter what this is at all, and everybody will probably do something completely different, but this is the beginnings of you making a personal response to a particular piece of artwork. So after drawing for 30 seconds, stop drawing and look again at the painting for another 30 seconds. Then cover up the painting again and add to your drawing for another 30 seconds. So you've already made a personal response to this particular painting, which we can now reveal is called Mr. and Mrs. Andrews, and it's by the painter Thomas Gainsborough, and it belongs to the National Gallery in London. Now have another look at the painting and write down some words that you think describe that painting in some way. We often use this particular painting in bridging, and so these are some of the words that students commonly use to describe the painting. So whatever words you've written down, that's another personal response to this painting. How else might we try and understand what's going on in this painting? One way into it is its composition. Composition means the way that the things or the objects or the people in the painting are arranged on the canvas. And sometimes that can be a really interesting way into considering a painting. By drawing a line through the middle of the painting, we can see that Thomas Gainsborough has given or afforded as much space to the couple, Mr. and Mrs. Andrews, as he has done to the landscape. We can see that it's a very cultivated landscape. It's been well looked after by somebody. If we look at the clothes that Mr. and Mrs. Andrews are wearing, we might come to the conclusion that it's not them who farm or work this land, but instead that they might be the owners of the land. And so by considering the composition in 2 halves in this way, we can see that Thomas Gainsborough has portrayed the wealth of Mr. and Mrs. Andrews equally through their own portrait as much as through their cultivated land. So another word we might use in relation to this image is status, a word that we're all familiar with through the contemporary lens of social media. What if we drew a diagonal line through the painting from the top left-hand corner to the bottom right-hand corner? Perhaps this diagonal line might draw our attention to the relationship between Mr. and Mrs. Andrews and the balance of power in that relationship. So just jot down a few words or a few ideas about what you think about that now that we've got this diagonal line in. Now that we've started to look at the painting a bit more closely, write down a few notes about Mr. Andrews' relationship with his dog, and maybe also Mr. Andrews' relationship with his gun. What might these elements of the painting suggest? Thinking about Mrs. Andrews, we might start to consider the painting through feminist lenses. Thinking about how you look at the painting is also very much part of your personal response to artwork. So, for example, you might be interested in a feminist interpretation of this painting, or in the idea of a Marxist interpretation, or you might be interested in the way that Gainsborough builds a balanced composition that draws our eye to particular things through his process of painting. So this is where the tea bag comes in. So thinking about the composition, use paint onto your used and dried out, obviously, tea bag, and use that as a printing block. So you're making very small prints, but experiment with ideas that have come out of this session about the composition. And if you start to put those all together, then that's yet another way into your personal response to this particular image. In this session then, you've made a personal response to Mr. and Mrs. Andrews by Thomas Gainsborough. So that response has been through drawing, through very simple printmaking, through looking at the composition, considering some of the ideas that can throw up in a work of art. And all of these ways of personally responding to an artwork are part of the Fine Art A-level. So hopefully, if you've enjoyed this session, you can maybe apply this to other works of art, not necessarily just paintings, but sculptures and prints, installations and photography, and maybe have a look at some other artworks using these means over the summer holidays. So from everybody in the Fine Art team, thank you so much for taking part, and we hope to see you soon when college resumes.